Initial D is said to be one of the most realistic pieces of fictional media when it comes to talking about street racing. From the techniques used to the locations where events took place, every bit of it almost perfectly aligns with reality. The last time we talked about different actions performed in this anime, we went over the different types of racing techniques used by various drivers like Takumi, Kaiko Gashiwa, and Dr. Joshima. In this video, we'll go over something relatively similar and talk about the different driving styles used by each character. Before I start, I would like to give a small apology for not talking about each technique used in one of my previous videos. However, to make it up to you guys, I will be going over all the missing techniques from that video in this one. I'll also take the effort to clear up any misconceptions and information that were made in it. But without further ado, let's go over the first style that's seen in the series, which is Takumi Fujiwara's corner entry. Over the years, Takumi has grown into and adjusted to many different driving styles that help him beat faster opponents over time. But the main driving style he uses to throw his car into a corner the fastest way possible is what most people call shift locking. It's essentially when you're traveling at an elevated rate of speed and you downshift in the braking zone to momentarily decrease the speed of the rear wheels compared to the front, which will result in the car to swing out into a drift. As you're going through the corner, you do have the ability to slam the gas throughout the entire turn, but only if your car has enough degrees towards the inside of the corner. Also, I should make a quick heads up for this entry style. You must make sure that when you downshift, you only shift within the limits of what the transmission can handle. You wouldn't want to be on the red line of a gear, then downshift causing the engine to blow. The best time to perform a shift lock would to be in a lightweight rear-wheel drive car, and make sure that before downshifting into the previous gear, you're around the middle point of the gear you're currently in. For example, if you're going to perform a shift lock when you're in a car that can rev up to about 8,000 RPMs and you're currently in third gear and about to shift into second, make sure that when you're in third gear, the RPM dial is around 5,500 RPMs, that way you're not money shifting. The next driving style we can observe is Keisuke Takahashi's. The funny thing about this driving style is that you won't be able to find any specific information about it by watching the anime. Instead, you'll have to refer to the Initial D Omnibus Volume 4 between pages 111 and 114. It states that Keisuke's FD is a rear-wheel drive car with a perfectly even weight distribution on the front and rear. But this puts the driver at a disadvantage on an uphill race because gravity is constantly weighing the car down the closer they reach the peak. But due to this, Keisuke takes the grip in his tires into account and makes sure to not put any excess wear on them so he can use it for the rest of the race. He flings the cars into turns to maintain its cornering speed and aims for smoothness on the exit, which will minimize additional wheel spin. As Keisuke continues to attack the corners this way, he has the ability to use all 350 horsepower of his FD by slowly applying pressure on the gas throughout the streets. Driving with a preservative style like this is the RX-7's bread and butter when it comes to speed. If you're even a little too aggressive on the accelerator, it can spin out into oblivion. But with enough experience on how much force this car can handle, it can quickly become one of the fastest cars you can ever use on a mountain pass, which is exactly what Keisuke used to his advantage when he raced with Takashi Nakazato in his R32 Skyline. Just be ready to pay an insane price when you buy one in real life. The third driving style that we heard about was done by Keisuke's brother, Ryosuke Takahashi. It's a driving style that was developed and updated with every race that Takumi won in first stage that Ryosuke calls the fastest racing theory. In a short summary, Ryosuke's theory is that because amateur racers that are new to mountain pass driving use the straight road sections to go as fast as they can, and intermediate drivers use the corners to gain speed, exceptionally good drivers like him can not only use both the corners and straights to their advantage, but also the instincts they've given themselves after countless hours and days worth of racing. These instincts can include course knowledge, understanding how your car handles, and the ability to observe your opponent when they're in front of you to see their strengths and weaknesses so you can exploit that weakness and overtake them at a safe spot. A perfect example on when Ryosuke put this theory to use is when he raced the lead member of the Emperor team, Kyoichi Sudo, on his home course, Mount Akagi. Ryosuke and Keisuke made an agreement to not drive on Mount Akagi for 3 days to let the Emperors examine their pass, and once race day came, Ryosuke overtook Kyoichi from the outside because he noticed that throughout the race, Kyoichi was hesitant to get as close as he can to the apex on right-hand turns. The reason being is because in Japan, drivers stay on the left lane while oncoming traffic drives on the right, the opposite of what happens in the United States. In a nutshell, Kyoichi was scared of getting into a head-on collision with oncoming traffic, so he made sure to stay away from the inside on blind corners. Although this is an understandable approach for safety, it can be used against you by the other driver if they're willing to push into the danger zone. Basically, Ryosuke analyzes every bit of the mountain as he's driving while also thinking about the capabilities of his car, then watches his opponent to see what can be improved on. It's truly impressive to see how advanced Ryosuke's driving style is when watching the show. This is the reason why most fans, including myself, consider him to be one of the fastest drivers in the entire series. But enough glazing Ryosuke. Let's move on to the fourth driving style, which is Takashi Nakazato's. As I mentioned in the end of Keisuke's driving style, Nakazato drives a 1994 Nissan Skyline GTR R32. It puts out roughly 380 horsepower and is known for being able to accelerate out of corners in low gears. It's equipped with a beefy twin-turbo engine known as the RB26DETT, a sport ECU, cold air intake, a triple-plate clutch more than likely made by ORC, and racing spark plugs. All of these performance modifications contribute very well to giving this car about an extra 104 horsepower compared to its stock form. Now this GTR might sound like some unstoppable beast on the track, but it suffers from a severe weakness of understeer due to it weighing about 3,100 pounds. However, Takashi has the perfect cornering strategy to counter all this weight and use a portion of it to his advantage. He lets off the throttle and slams on the brakes as hard as he can to shift all the way to the front, uses a precise amount of steering force to get the car around the corner without shifting too much weight to the opposite direction of where the car is going, then slams it once he completes the corner to put down every bit of the Skyline's power. If the car notices that its rear wheels are accelerating more than the front, the attested ETS system electronically sends power to them to pull the car away from any chance of spinning out. This car has a perfect mixture between requiring the skill of a driver and modern technologies that can improve quality. But on the contrary, Nakazato is pretty short-tempered and tends to sometimes make snap decisions when something doesn't go as planned. This is a partial explanation on why he crashed when racing Takumi's 8.6. He was fooled by Fujiwara's disappearing line and tried to clap back by slamming on the gas, but over-rotated the car, causing him to clip the guardrail and immediately lose the race. The fifth driving style shown is done by Takashi's teammate Shingo Shoji, or as his name is in the manga, Shingo Atsushi. While most people believe that the only driving concept that Shingo has is to blunt people into smithereens, he actually uses a much more advanced techniques to get around corners in front-wheel drive cars known as left-foot braking. See, left-foot braking is a technique that's almost specifically made for front-wheel drive cars because the front tires are the ones that spin to make a car drive. With this mechanism, there will be much more weight and drag on the front of the car at all times, especially under braking, which can induce lots of understeer. To cope with this issue, Shingo enters a corner with his right foot halfway on the throttle, then slowly lets it off while putting down the brake with his left foot. The reason why Shingo is able to attain such cornering speed is because when the weight shifts all the way to the front as he's braking, the rear becomes so light that it skids outward. He can easily save the car from spinning out or understeering by slamming on the gas because spinning out usually derives from too much wheel spin on the rear wheels. This driving style is pretty much the main reason why Shingo thought Takumi would crash when racing him. His rule had been for Takumi to duct tape his right hand to the steering wheel, that way it was harder for him to turn, forcing him to learn how to left foot brake in a rear wheel drive car in the matter of about 3 or 4 corners. Although left foot braking gives off a similar exterior look to when a rear wheel drive car performs a 4-wheel drift, the actions taken to pull either two off are the polar opposites. As I said with left foot braking, you dive into a corner at a high speed, then let off the throttle and slowly put down the brake at the same time, while with a 4-wheel drift you'd enter a corner by braking, turning when required, then slamming on the throttle to perform a power slide. I truly believe that left foot braking is more than likely the fastest way one can enter a corner while maintaining control over their car. Coincidentally enough, I managed to intertwine the next driving style, which was done by Mako and Sayuki in their Nissan C-Lady, with the left foot braking technique. They also perform 4-wheel drifting in order to block their opponents from passing, along with an additional style of drifting known as clutch kicking. She simply drives into a corner at an elevated rate of speed, then quickly pushes in the clutch pedal to generate some wheel spin, and then counter-steers almost immediately to stop the car from spinning out. These two girls are known for being able to beat almost everyone they race by drifting across the longest corner on Isui Pass, known as C121, standing for corner 121. A lot of people constantly doubt Mako's driving skills paired with Sayuki's guidance. To put it in context, there was a slight chance of Takumi losing the race he had against the two of them if Mako hadn't gone into one of the corners way too fast. The lesson of the day is, don't sleep on female street racers. For our 7th driving style shown, we have Kyoichi Sudo's counterattack method. As I mentioned his name before, Kyoichi is the leader of a team known as Emperor, which is a group that strictly drives any model or generation of the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. Sudo's Evo is specifically designed and tuned for mid-speed, tight hairpins, and equipped with metal head gaskets, a stock turbo with high-flow turbine housing, a boost controller, sports muffler, and a rally-style anti-lag CPU known as a misfiring system in the anime, which gives him a total of 350 horsepower. Kyoichi specifically banks on the idea of being able to quickly adjust his mindset from driving on low-speed sections to high-speed sections on a course to defeat his rivals. A perfect example I could give for this is his main course known as the Iroha Slopes, located in the Totogi Prefecture of Japan. 95% of the course is filled with long straightaways followed by quick, tight hairpins that require an abundance of turning skills to avoid understeer. But once you're near the finish, the road widens and goes into a small section of light corners with a few bridges connected to it. It seems subtle, but the change of pace is so sudden that most novice drivers wouldn't notice it until it's too late. Plus, the first bit of the straight section goes into a small incline that turns into a far right that appears to be narrow from a far view, but turns into a road that 2 cars could drive on side by side. This whole layout is what Pseudo tried using to his advantage with his rematch with Takumi, but got thrown off when Fujiwara aggressively turned towards the left on the last corner to block him from overtaking. The 8th scene driving style is more of a skill rather than a style, but can be transformed into a style if done on almost every corner. Simply put, it's Daiki Nunomiya's braking technique. See, for the uninformed, attacking a corner works like this. You're driving at a specific speed and a curve is coming up. What you would do is let off the throttle and put your foot on the brake to slow down and loosen up the weight of the car, then gently turn the wheel as the car drives into the corner, and once you reach the middle of the corner, also known as the apex, you can get back on the gas and turn a little more if necessary. Daiki's strength is being able to slow down at the perfect point before the corner. Another reason why he's so skilled at this is because his Civic EK9 has no ABS, which means that if he masters down the brakes, the front wheels will lock up immediately, nullifying all forces of steering. In order to solve this, he needs to make sure that the moment he takes his foot off the brake to start steering is timed perfectly. Many people in the racing world overlook braking and feel that it's just a simple concept, but it might actually be one of the most crucial parts of driving in itself. Up next, we have one of Daiki's teammates in the Total School named Sakai, who raced against Keisuke in one of the exclusive battles in Battle Stage 2. Throughout the race, he seems to be a calm and alert driver, but quickly changed his entire style and started lightly tapping the brakes to scare Keisuke into thinking that he's gonna slam into him. On top of that, when Keisuke had to slow down so abruptly, he lost all his turbocharger's power and was eager to catch back up to Sakai's Integra, but charged into the corner too fast and almost collided with the guardrail. This whole setup was what most people call a brake feint. Just like many other feint actions in sports, Sakai's quick brake tap was meant to throw Keisuke off his rhythm and make him unfocused for a small period of time so he can seize the chance to pull away. If one knows a road or track well enough, they can figure out almost each and every proper braking zone and racing line that can be taken on said track, while racers that have only driven on the track a handful of times will only know some. If the opponent isn't aware of every braking spot, then they might believe that tapping the brakes at a certain spot is a necessity because they don't know what's ahead of them. This is the exact explanation for why Keisuke fell into this trap in such a quick moment. Also, to reference a small bit of character development, Keisuke actually got brake checked by another character named Aikawa during his race in the Saitama Prefecture, but didn't give in to braking suddenly because he was already used to it by then. If you thought Sakai's braking technique was a risky move, wait until you hear about this next one. One day, as Takumi, Itsuki, and Nikitani were all casually driving up Mount Akina, they get passed by a mysterious S15 Sylvia. Once they all got up to the peak, the driver of the S15 poked fun at Itsuki for driving an AE85 instead of an AE86. Out of spite, they all raced the S15 downhill when suddenly, the Sylvia doesn't seem to slow down until the turn-in zone of a corner, but Fujiwara four-wheel drifts past him, leaving him in the dust. The terminology that explains why the S15 driver didn't brake until the very last point is what he calls ultra-super late braking. As I said, just go fast into a corner and don't slam the brakes until the very last chance you have. There's two things you should know about this driving style. Number one, don't try it because you're gonna die. And number two, if you are gonna try this, then make sure you have some strong, good handling brakes paired with a car that has ABS. I couldn't even imagine the massacre of what your car could look like if you did this without ABS. Anyways, on a more positive side of racing, our 11th driving style is done by a team member of the Northern Saitama Alliance named Sakamoto, known as neutral steering. Neutral steering is said to be a pretty complicated terminology depending on how and when it's being done. It's often used as a substitute definition for slip angle or tire deformation, but to keep this video simplistic, it's essentially when you manage to drift, and as you're going through the corner, the weight is on the opposite side of where the corner is faced, with enough momentum on the rear to not require any steering angle. As I've referenced many times in this video already, four-wheel drifting is most likely the easiest way to initiate a neutral steer at low speeds. The reason being is because if you're on a long corner and push the gas down a little more than necessary when you're 1/4 into the turn, it'll give the wheels enough loss of traction to just slide a little bit. This is the point where you'd barely countersteer at all, just to keep the car in place. A great car setup for performing this kind of driving style is to have some loosened suspension and make sure the ride height is lowered for aerodynamics. As Ken Miles himself once said, "I think one of the most beautiful things as a driver or spectator can experience in racing is a four-wheel drift to a constant radius bend like turn 2. I know that repeating the next driving style, or this such and such is done by this guy, is getting a little repetitive, but don't worry because we're almost done. The 12th driving style scene is performed by Kozo Hoshino, part of a duo known as Purple Shadow, and drives a jade green Nissan Skyline R34. Kozo Hoshino is known for shouting "Doria" and grunting while racing. He does this to stop himself from concentrating too much due to his agile, yet aggressive driving style. The reason why he got the name Godfoot is because of his immaculate control on the gas pedal and ability to drift with the Atessa ETS system in his car turned on. Just like the R32 Skyline, the R34 Skyline is equipped with the all-wheel drive system, which lets all four wheels spin at the same time to increase traction. It's a pretty heavy and long car, so keeping it balanced is a struggle, but in a way, Hoshino was able to use this to his advantage by taking up both lanes as he drifts to block his opponents from passing. Another thing he's famous for is pulling unexpected and dangerous moves to get into first place. A perfect example is the second uphill run in his mixed stage race with Keisuke. On the corner before the final straightaway of the round, Kozo convinced Keisuke that he'll try and overtake him from the outside, but purposely failed so he can sneak alongside him at the turnaround point, forcing Keisuke to adjust his angle and let him through. If Keisuke was unaware of this sneak attack even a second longer than anticipated, they both would have collided with each other and crashed. The second person in the Purple Shadow duo was named Toshiya Joshima, who performs a driving style known as the fastest line attack. Toshiya Joshima, nicknamed God Hand, is famous due to his ability to meticulously steer his car with only one hand on the steering wheel. He manages to have such precise cornering abilities by taking advantage of something known as slip angle. To summarize it in one sentence, slip angle is the degrees between the direction of a corner and where the wheels on a car are pointing towards, and is usually mentioned when someone loses traction momentarily. Remember how I said that four-wheel drifting is one of the best ways to initiate a neutral steer? Well, achieving a high degree of slip angle is also a secondary way to make this technique possible. Simply take a car with a relatively even amount of weight distribution, and when you drive into a corner, let off the throttle a little while lightly braking at the same time. Just like how it works with left foot braking, the rear will lose a portion of its weight and slightly fishtail. As you're going through the corner, you may notice that you're not only performing a neutral steer, but the front wheels are barely turning either. This is because the weight suddenly got shifted from the back of the car towards the front, and because we applied a very minimal amount of steering input, the tires were able to lightly lose grip and deform for a quick second so we can make our way across the corner. Joshima doesn't rely on taking strategic racing lines to improve his lap times and speeds. Instead, all he focuses on is making sure that he's always skidding on the limit of grip while controlling the car in an organized fashion. People can go on for literal hours explaining the physics and mathematics behind why the amount of slip angle is detrimental to how you skid across a corner, but because this video is about some extremely niche anime and not a math documentary, this is probably the most simplistic explanation for it. Anyway, moving on to the last three driving styles seen in 5th and final stage, we have a second driving style seen by Keisuke Takahashi known as sprinting, or super attacking as Ryosuke calls it. Around the middle of 4th stage, Takumi and Keisuke were doing a practice run on a mountain known as Tsuchisaka Pass. As Keisuke was on the uphill run, he suddenly saw a puddle of oil that his opponent set up for his car to slip on, causing him to ram into a barrier on a short bridge. Fast forward a few days, Ryosuke calls Fumihiro to check up on him while he was fixing Keisuke's FD, and explained that the modifications and repairing done to the RX-7 will result in a dramatic boost of the FD's racing capabilities. This is a very important factor to explain why Keisuke is able to perform a sprint with his car in 5th stage. For Keisuke's first race in the Kanagawa Prefecture, he was in the chase position, being followed by a racer named Kobayakawa who drove a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 7. As they got to the final section of the pass, Keisuke slams on the gas and immediately increases his pace, outrunning Kobayakawa in seconds. The reason why Keisuke was able to pull a win out of this race is because his car was now tuned and designed for being able to get pushed to the limit right after taking it easy on the first part of the race. Its transmission also more than likely had some short ratio gears designed for acceleration, while the suspension is stiff, which is perfect for gripping. The second to last driving style seen isn't necessarily a style and more of a mental state, but can dramatically improve your driving style if you're focused enough. It's used by Reiji Aikida and is known as the Zero Theory. Reiji is a very calm and philosophical character in Initial D. He meditates in his Nissan 350Z, and his father is the head priest in a temple they own, which has given them lots of money, and Aikida uses his cut of the money to modify and race his car. The Zero Theory is a speculation that he has, which consists of understanding that human emotions dictate your entire existence, and depending on the emotions you feel, you could either have a good or bad day. With this being said, Aikida eliminates all emotions whatsoever so his mind can completely hone in on his performance. When this happens, he enters a flow state where he can control his Z as if it were an extension of his body. Almost like how many spectators explain Takumi's driving style, but much more calm compared to him. And finally, the last seen driving style in Initial D is known as minimal braking, performed by Shinji Inui. Shinji is almost just like Takumi, yet the polar opposite at the same time. Just like how Takumi grew up without a mother, Shinji grew up without a father due to him dying while his mother was still pregnant. In Takumi's early life, he grasped a complete understanding of Mount Akina because of him constantly making tofu deliveries early in the morning, while Shinji had a great understanding of his home course Tsubaki Line because he used to ride in the passenger seat of his mother's 86 on the way home after being picked up from school. As he was racing Fujiwara, he notices that Shinji is able to pull away little by little on each corner due to his incredibly smooth driving style, which is done by carefully being on the throttle, then braking a little to keep the car stable. Inui isn't a huge fan of being able to aggressively throw your car into a corner to make it slide through the whole thing because he views it as dangerous and careless. He feels like this because as he grew into a late teenager, he used to offer driving his mother home from work due to her being stressed after a long day. He made sure to drive as smooth as possible so he won't upset Miss Inui and potentially damage the car. This was arguably one of the closest races Takumi ever won, since he finished by blowing his engine, causing the rear wheels to lock up and crossing the finish line in reverse. So after more than 18 minutes of explanations and speeches about each driving style seen in Initial D, I hope you can now understand how each character in this series drives and what they perform to achieve speed. I know I said it in the beginning, but I do apologize for accidentally forgetting a few techniques in the video I made a couple months ago. Hopefully this video was able to clear up some confusion and serve as a sequel to the first one. I thank you for watching this video and hope to see you on the next one. Also, I forgot to mention Seiji's driving style. Basically, he flings his car into a corner at a high speed while staying on the throttle at all times. That way he can regain his tire's grip when entering the corner. I mean, exiting the corner. You know what I mean.